Hey everyone, this is Player 1,
And this is Player 2.
and I'm coming to you with my Dreamcast collection. I'm very excited about this because to some degree I love talking about the Dreamcast whenever I can, because to me, of course I played the Super Nintendo, of course I played the N64, the PlayStation, but there was something about the Dreamcast during my, I guess, middle school. I don't remember if it was middle school. Yeah, it was middle school. That kind of age where it was just the time that it was cool, man. And that's where I really experienced some of the best games and the games I remember the most. Games like some of the ones that we're going to talk about today. So
I have to agree. The Dreamcast holds a special place in my heart. If not the most, I would say the best system in history for me, at least. Even though I did have the NES and the Sega Genesis, but the Dreamcast was special to me because it had so much potential and it had so many good games that when I look back at it now, a lot of the things that current systems have came from the Dreamcast.
Right, a lot of the so-called innovations like online play, like that, like having a screen in the middle, kind of like the Switch or the Wii U. All these things really were around.
Just look at the Xbox the controller. It's actually
it's mimicking the Dreamcast.
Yeah, and there was a lot of good things that the Dreamcast did, like those the memory card units that had the little LCD screen.
Yeah, it was Sonic. I think Sonic Adventure, where you can take your little chibi. I forgot what they called the little creatures. You would like raise them.
Yeah.
And I used to love playing. This is one of the reasons I've been wanting to go through and play some of the old Resident Evils. And this is one of the reasons why I've been wanting to do a Dreamcast, because I used to love reading the health bar on that little thing. It was like a cool little second screen back when people weren't talking about tablets just yet.
Yeah, and I agree. And also, I believe that you could even play with keyboard. I think some of the...
Yeah, there were some games with keyboard. There was Typing of the Dead, a kind of quirky, cool game.
It had a lot of potential, and to me, I got it during a Christmas, and it was a fantastic Christmas for me because I had gotten it with Sonic Adventure and Code Veronica, Resident Evil. So I spent a lot of time on the Dreamcast. But anyway, this is your collection, so I'm taking too much time.
No, not at all. All right, here we go. So as you can see, I have two right here on our desk, table, board, whatever you want to call it. I have Blue Stinger and Carrier. So both of these kind of are riding the bandwagon of Resident Evil, the kind of survival horror bandwagon of when that was really becoming extremely popular. You can see this even has a sticker. I think this is back from EB Games. What is Electronic Boutique? Is that right?
I think so.
Which is still around in Canada. It's still around in Canada, I think, in Europe, but here we don't have it anymore in the U.S.
No, it became GameStop.
GameStop bought them out, right? Or did EB buy GameStop?
I don't remember the story, but I know that EB Games in Canada, I think, is owned by GameStop.
Okay.
You guys can let us know in the comments.
Regardless, that brings me back to the old EB games and the stupidity of trading in games. Oh well. So both of these games are survival horror kind of games. This is kind of an interesting game, and in fact, it's a great holiday. Now that we're talking about Christmas and all the holidays, end of the New Year, kind of this kind of holiday time. It's a great game because there's a lot of Christmassy events. You're running around and fighting these monsters on this kind of island, kind of oil rig type location, and there's like little malls and shopping sections where you hear like Christmas type music. So that's kind of cool. It's not the greatest game, but I think for the time it could have been worse.
I enjoyed that game. I actually got very far, and I don't remember why I stopped it. I don't think it was because I didn't like the game. I think it's because I got to a section that I couldn't get past, and I just stopped playing, because there were some other games that I got into at the time. But
I remember the horrible voice acting though. It had like that guy that always reminds me of Barry Burden, that big guy with the gold tee. But there was really bad voice acting in the game.
I don't remember.
You don't remember
to
that?
be honest. But I'll tell you a story with regards to, you were mentioning trading it. I was actually at a GameStop not too long ago and looking around because they were having the collectibles for 50% off. Mm-hmm. And I saw a lady trading in her son's Xbox 360, and it had to be at least 15 to 20 games plus the controllers, and I think she has some PS3 games as well. And when the guy totaled everything up, it was like, I think maybe $50 at the most, and she had the PS3, the Xbox 360, everything, and I was like so amazed.
It's a rip, man.
I was so amazed that she went ahead and traded them all in, and I was like, you gotta be crazy.
It happens. Unfortunately, a lot of people do that. I'm not gonna be a hypocrite. When I was much younger, I used to do the same. I was dumb. I don't even know what I was. It's just that we don't think about it. Today, I don't feel like people have the same excuse because you have the internet. You can really look stuff up and see that even if you sell it yourself on eBay, you'll make more money.
I will tell you this. My personal experience is I did it once, and when the guy told me that my games were worth about $3, I was like, no. I felt cheated. I still did it at the time because I was stupid, but after that, I never traded in a game ever again. But anyway.
Yeah, it's one of those things. But real quickly about Carrier, that's real survival horror in the sense that it's like you're fighting these zombie-type creatures on a ship. I think it's an aircraft carrier, if I'm not mistaken, or like some kind of like, I don't remember exactly, but it was like a ship or not a submarine. It had to be an aircraft carrier. Whatever. But it was kind of like a B title. It's like a cheap Resident Evil. But again, I think both of those games are worth playing just to experience. And by the way, if you guys want us to review any of these games, let us know. I'm working on some reviews now that we're going to start releasing in the next couple of weeks. So we like to keep that part of us active because I just love kind of looking retrospectively and seeing stuff. So regardless, let us know if there's anything you'd like for us to review. Alright, next on the collection. Unfortunately, I don't have the box for all of these, but I do have some CDs. We have Crazy Taxi and Evil Dead. So Crazy Taxi, I spent hours and hours and hours playing that game. And there's nothing to it. There's no real story mode. It's basically an arcade game. That's what it is. It's an arcade. You're just collecting people and you're rushing to get to another part of town where you're supposed to drop them off. It's like an arcade, weird type racer. But I don't know what it was. It was just so much fun at the time.
I agree with you. Though I did try to play it recently, not on the Dreamcast, but I did try to play it and I couldn't get back into it. But
makes sense. It's been a couple of years, probably dated. I always thought I have to go back and play it. Now you mention it, but I always feel like they use a similar engine to like the Sonic. The city looked the same, like the Sonic Adventure.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But yeah, I loved it back then. Evil Dead Hail to the King. I actually did not have that back in the day. I had another Evil Dead game. I forgot what it's called. It's the one that came out before this one. I believe it's the one that came out before this one. And I'm so pissed to this day. I lent it to a friend of mine and I never got it back. I never got it back to this day. And so like I'm still looking for a copy of it. It might even be this one. I have to play it again to see. I don't remember which one. But it was one of the two Evil Deads that came out for Dreamcast. And I guess now I finally have a copy. And unfortunately I don't have it complete. But at least I got it. And this is kind of a quirky Evil Dead. Like really kind of for those people who are a fan of the Evil Dead lore, because they use the actual voice acting, which is nice, of the kind of like that funny actor. I forgot his name.
Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell, and all that. So I opened up the cartridge. So here's two more. Here's the Dreamcast Generator Volume 2. This is kind of interesting. It's I guess it's a demo disc. I remember. I think it actually had online where you could play one of the games online. I don't remember what games are on this. I might check that out just out of curiosity. Gauntlet Legends. That's another great game. I spent many hours playing that. It's kind of like a Diablo-esque dungeon crawler. But I loved it back in the day. I think we used to play it some.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I used to play it some with my brother also. And it was just something that I used to get
it was your family, and then we used to all, because at the time everybody was. This is before the Wii and before Wii Sports and all that. So we used to all go to each other's houses and play it.
You guys remember what that was like when you could play on the couch co-op and not have a problem? Every game had it. This was one of them. So again, Gauntlet Legends, kind of fun, early dungeon crawler. What do you call those type of games like Diablo?
I think it's dungeon
crawlers.
I guess it was dungeon crawlers.
It was fun. A lot of fun. All right, let's see what else I got here. Oh yeah. Again, two more games from my childhood, and most of these games I'm showing you I've actually had since my childhood, unless I say otherwise. Two of another awesome favorite game on the system, House of the Dead 2, and actually I should have brought the gun. I have that the gun that you use to shoot at the TV.
Yeah, it's a light gun.
Yeah, it's a light gun. It's like and this game you can use it on House of the Dead 2, and boy was that a blast. House of the Dead 2 is probably my favorite House of the Dead, more than likely because I used to play a ton of it.
I agree. I mean, I used to play, and I love the little. Again, I go back to the memory card because as you put it onto the light gun in the memory card, each game had their own distinct, I wouldn't say menu system or avatar kind of look. So, and the House of the Dead, I used to love playing the actual with the gun, and it was a blast. I mean, I played it back in the day in Dave and Buster's. I think Dave and Buster's had it.
Buster's, yeah.
Yeah, Dave and Buster's had it.
I don't know if every state has Dave and Buster's.
I don't know, but I know it was there, and it was in a couple other places that had arcades, and I enjoyed it. Back in the day when there was arcade, I think there's maybe a handful of arcades left in the world.
Arcades were awesome back in the day when you could play those games there.
Yeah, and I remember. I know you're gonna talk about this one, but
Legacy of Kain.
I hated the puzzles, but I loved the storytelling, the actual not lyrics. How would you say the lines that the actors use? The voice acting is top notch, even to this day. The writing. The writing is incredible. Kain was incredible. Raziel. It's just the voice acting. I mean, to this day, it's probably the best voice acting I've ever heard.
I'll say this. Legacy of Kain series, it's a long-running series. It basically deals with Kain. He's a vampire who kind of wanted to take over the world. There's I don't want to say a prequel to Soul Reaver, but I think the games really blew up with Soul Reaver. But there's a couple games, they're called Blood Omen 1 and 2, and I don't remember there's a part 3. But then that's kind of like the prequel of how Kain became Kain. In Soul Reaver, you take control of Raziel. And Raziel is kind of his lieutenant, and the whole idea is they've taken over. Vampires rule the world. And so Raziel being a lieutenant of Kain, the way it works is every couple hundred years, vampires, they evolve and they get a new power. And Kain has a rule, which is when he's the first one to get a new power, 100 years later, you're supposed to get a new power. He'll teach you how to use the new power, which could be, like running through a wall or seeing in the nighttime, whatever. But Raziel, for an unknown reason, grows wings for the first time. And Kain, being the king, arrogant, typical villain, he's like, wait a second, why the hell do you have wings? You know the rules. I'm supposed to have them first. So he takes his lead second-hand man to kind of throw him into the abyss.
Well, first he shreds his wings.
Yeah, he breaks his wings.
So what you see here is not that he's wearing a scarf. Those are what's left of his wings.
Yeah, exactly. And so he throws him into the abyss, and a lot of time passes because it's the whole idea of like purgatory, abyss, and almost like another dimension, like an astral type dimension, and there's no real time. So when he comes back, it's been years later. The vampires are basically wiped out. The world's in ruins, basically. And then you have to kind of figure out the mystery while you want to get revenge. And I don't want to give any much more than that because it's such an incredible story. And I agree 100% with Player 2. In my opinion, it's probably the best voice acting I have ever experienced in the game.
I will say this. I learned so many vocabulary words.
Yeah, man.
So many vocabulary words from this series. It's just a marvel seeing them just talk to each other and just go at it. And the story is it's fantastic. It's tragic. It's I don't know even what to describe it. I mean,
I'll say this. The story continues because this is part 1, part 2, and I have it on the PS2, and part 3 came out on the Xbox 360. What a trilogy! Everything that Player 2 and I often talk about the trilogy syndrome. Most trilogies end up sucking or like continuation. It's like they never know when to quit. And recently we've seen some of that, unfortunately, with Star Wars not being what it should be. We've seen that with the Hobbit trilogy just being disgusting. But every once in a while you get a magic thing. Magic thing being the first trilogy of Lord of the Rings, the movies, I think were magic.
Or right? Ip Man.
Ip Man. If you guys know Ip Man, that's another one. Trilogy. But the Soul Reaver trilogy is absolutely beautiful. It's such a great, strong story. Great writing. It's incredible.
If you haven't checked out the Legacy of Kain series or Blood Omen, definitely Soul Reaver, definitely check it out. The puzzles are a pain.
They are, and that's the truth. The second game fixed that.
Yes, but
the first one had some problems.
So, yes, but definitely, and they are at this point. You can look at them as being very old, but you will not be disappointed with the story, the writing, the voice acting.
At least watch a playthrough on like YouTube because it's much. And I want to say this. Everybody talks about Kojima being very interesting. if you've kept up with what's going on with Deathly Stranding, Death Stranding, this idea of how there's like this other realm where you go into when you die. Let me tell you, Soul Reaver was doing it years ago.
Yes.
You would never really die in Soul Reaver.
Yes, what happened, when you would die, you will go to this other realm, call it like a purgatory realm kind of, and there's these other creatures that would try to attack you and suck your soul to kind of consume you. But if you killed enough of them and you went through, you would be, I wouldn't say reborn, but you will come back to your body. Now, this is something that in Death Stranding, if you've seen...
They're kind of hinting at.
They're kind of hinting at where you're in the water and you kind of go through the same, but this was done in Soul Reaver a long time ago, so it's...
Yeah, and they really pushed the envelope with even the puzzles that were interesting because you have to morph between real world and fake world, or not fake world, but the other dimension, which is kind of this purgatory, other distorted version of the real world. And in part 2, they got even hipper. They went from doing puzzles from the future to the past, and you would go back and forth. So the Soul Reaver series, I can't say enough about it. It's an incredible series, worth playing and definitely checking out. We can go all day about that, man.
Yeah, I love the Legacy of Kain.
Alright, I'm going to put this one by itself because the next 3 I think need to go together. So here's another one from my child. These are again from my childhood. I've been holding on to these. Mortal Kombat Gold. Another game I played the buttload crap of, like, no joke. I used to play a ton of this. I've told you guys Mortal Kombat is probably my favorite fighting series. And I played a ton of Mortal Kombat Gold. This was the one that I think added a bunch of characters from all the previous Mortal Kombats 1, 2, and 3. I don't remember if it has from 4 also. But I used to love it because this is when they started getting into like 3D moving around and it got kind of complex. And of course the typical fatalities. All the good stuff that Mortal Kombat was. I've always loved Mortal Kombat. So that's kind of Mortal Kombat Gold.
Oh, I see what you have.
Yeah. What we have next is the pinnacle of survival horror. And see how we can squeeze these in the video. Can we?
No, I don't think so.
Alright, well I'll put Code Veronica next. But what we have here is the pinnacle of survival horror. And I do mean that. This is what I think survival horror is and what it should be. We have Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and... kind of slip in there. Resident Evil Code Veronica. So, getting the Dreamcast made games with the processing power it had. It was really ahead of its time. Made games like Code Veronica possible. I remember playing Code Veronica and being blown away by just how beautiful the CGI beginning looked. It was incredible. Remember
I hated playing Veronica because I hated the Bandersnatch.
Oh yeah, the Bandersnatch. See, it was like creative creatures. It wasn't like, I've enjoyed some of the recent Resident Evils, like Resident Evil 6. I actually liked it, but since 4, all the creatures have just become this massive like crazy, like the Thing kind of thing, which is cool. But there was some creativity in the creatures here, man. Well, those Bandersnatches were something very, very scary.
Because they've kind of deviated from having monsters like the Hunter, the Ivy. Even though they show a licker once in a while, but they kind of deviated from that type of monsters, and it's kind of become more, you know, kind of like the what are their names again? I forgot.
Plagas.
The Plagas and the townspeople where their heads just blow open.
Since Resident Evil 4, that's where they've gone. But let me tell you, these are where survival horror is. In my opinion, it's not Resident Evil 7. That is not going back to Resident Evil what it used to be. It may be a good game for those of you that like it. Congratulations, good for you. But to say that that's Resident Evil, nope, that is not Resident Evil. This is Resident Evil. And I say that because what Resident Evil brought was good storytelling with overacting kind of cheesy American ideas or Japanese ideas of what American heroes are like, because that's really what it's about. That's where a lot of that kind of cheese comes from. But these scary environments, again, playing Code Veronica, a beautiful looking game, had me on the edge of my toes, dealing with the whole story, finding out, you know, you're playing as Claire, finding out what Chris is, where's your brother, all that. It was a big deal.
In fact, this is how Chris used to be before he became the big macho, 17-inch abs.
And then before Resident Evil 7, when he's like 50 and it looks like he's 19 years old. So again, they haven't really gone in the best way. But this Chris was more of a realistic looking Chris. Let's say he was kind of like a hero. He was a military young guy at the time that recently gotten out of what was going on with the first mansion and all that. Resident Evil 2, I'm sure many of you have heard about it. Maybe you have played it, maybe you haven't. Obviously, we're all waiting for a remake, but man, that game was something special. There's a great scene in the beginning of Resident Evil where they break in through the window of a gun shop, and to this day, whenever I'm eye level with a window and it's dark outside and there's no curtains, I think of that game. That's how I know it's had an impact on my life. I always remember the creepy part where the zombies breaking in, dealing with things like William Birkin, the Super Tyrant, Mr. X, all these incredible characters and like villains and creatures that they made up. Resident Evil 3 was, I guess, for some a disappointment when it first came out because, you know, we got the city again. But I liked it because really Resident Evil 2, even though it wasn't Raccoon City, it felt like it was mainly in the police station and then eventually in the laboratory under the police station. It didn't feel like the city. Resident Evil 3 gave you the feeling of you're running around in the city, so that was cool. It added a new type of creatures. It added Nemesis. I remember literally jumping and going ah and screaming when he would break in because that was the first time that I could remember where if you ran into another room, you couldn't run away from the monster. He would just break through. You had seconds, and when he would come out, you had seconds to figure out what to do. And if you could either fight him or not fight him, and make choices like that would have branching paths. And I just thought it was awesome.
I will add Resident Evil 1 is also part of the Resident Evil.
Of course. Resident Evil 1 is going to be always where it began.
But at least for the Dreamcast, yes, you are correct.
Well, I like to say this. Resident Evil 1 is where it began, what started it. But what perfected it, I feel, is Resident Evil 2.
Yes.
I think Resident Evil 2 put it there because it still had survival horror, you still have all the elements, but then you also added just a little bit more action to kind of fit with what was going on, a little bit deeper story. So I think Resident Evil 2 is probably the pinnacle. And once we got to Resident Evil Code Veronica, which by the way, quick story behind this is they had a contract, Capcom had a contract with Dreamcast, and they didn't want to release a main game only for the Dreamcast because it wasn't selling good anymore, but they had a contract that they had to fulfill. So they did kind of this side story, which now fits into the lore. It's not really a side story. This is the first time we see, what's his name, Wesker have powers. But it had this side story that would eventually, what I was saying is they had to do a side story because they wanted to make Resident Evil 4 on a mainstream console, which they thought was going to be the GameCube. Which, as you know, the GameCube didn't do that well either, but it ended up being ported everywhere else. So there you go. By the way, mercenary mode, I believe started here, actually. Resident Evil 3, that's when you started getting that mercenary mode. And it wasn't a separate game like it is on the 3DS. It was actually just one game. It was actually what's called replayability. Something you can get afterwards.
Yeah, and all these games are prime examples of how everything should be done. Just put two, because two of them are going to fit only. So, yeah, so that's how exactly games should be because...
I remember, like, Resident Evil.
You used to play it, and then you play it, you beat it again, and you get infinite ammo, you get different skins. That's how it should be. Not this whole loot box gambling wannabe.
Right, these microtransactions, again. Back in the day, once you beat Resident Evil, and you went back, you got a key for a wardrobe, and you can beat it on certain times and do certain things to get more costumes and weapons. So it's kind of sad that's where we are. But even this, Capcom's not safe from kind of the hypocrisy because their recent Resident Evil, the combo pack of the HD remake of 0 and 1, they have microtransactions on now, on costumes instead of just adding them.
Definitely, Capcom is not above it all because what they've done with the Street Fighter series, basically gutting it where it only releases a couple of warriors, a couple of different players, different characters that you can play, and then say I'm sorry, it'll be better in the next game. But they repeat the same thing all over again.
And they're selling like now a Game of the Year version. But we're getting off topic. Two more games. One incredible game and one not so much. Guess which one's which?
I don't know. I will tell you this much: this game brings me almost to tears because it is one of those games that if you tell me in my lifetime what is one game that you will remember till the day you die, it will be Sonic Adventure. The soundtrack, the gameplay. There is no doubt in my mind that everybody thinks that this title is one of the best Sonics. Maybe probably with exception to the Sega Genesis Sonic, or maybe even the best Sonic game.
I know for me it's my favorite Sonic without a doubt. Even with that stupid the cat guy, that's the only thing I didn't like about it. That blue cat.
Yeah, they never brought him back afterwards.
I think there's a reason for that. It was annoying.
I will tell you, I played this game so much. I played it over and over. When I first got to the end and I got Supersonic,
it was like Super Saiyan basically.
it brings so much fond memories. I spent a lot of time on this game. And the soundtrack is phenomenal. I mean, it's not just one song. It's multiple songs that are just
and they're good outside of the game. For many years, I heard the tracks like in the radio, not my radio, but like in the car. I used to listen to it. I used to love it. It was just so good.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about this game.
What about Slave Zero? Did you ever get to play that?
I did play. I don't remember much about it.
So I played like a little bit of it. I remember thinking it was garbage back in the day. I played a little bit, and like Player 2, I don't remember much of it. I've had it this whole time. I played a little bit, and I didn't think much of it was annoying. I kept dying in some weird way. It was kind of a little bit of a disappointment what Slave Zero was. Slave Zero is kind of an old game, but they thought they tried to bring it to like the 3D aspect, and it didn't quite work, I think.
Okay.
So, there you go. All right, so talking about Sonic, how do you feel about this one?
You know, I actually enjoyed this one. I loved it because they introduced a different hedgehog, which was Shadow, and I did enjoy it.
You were into Shadow for a while.
I was loving it because I thought it was a good character, and maybe the character hasn't gone the way I wish it would have. But I do like Sonic Adventure 2.
There's also introduced Knuckles, right? Where you could play as Knuckles and the girl bat.
Yes, you could play as the girl bat. I forgot her name, but
forgot too.
Knuckles was in there. Was before Sonic Adventure. He was also in the Sega Genesis.
No. But I mean, you were able to play in Sonic Adventure. You didn't play as Knuckles, did you? I don't think so.
No, I don't think.
I think it was this
remember.
one. I don't remember.
I will tell you, I enjoyed it. I know there's a lot of divisive reviews on this because some people like it, some people hate it, but I liked it.
Oh no! Apparently, just looking at the back cover, you could play as Knuckles in the first one.
Yeah, because you got Tails. That was another thing about Sonic Adventure that was fantastic. Tails, I hated Tails until Sonic Adventure.
Yeah, I agree. Sonic Adventure 2 for me, I actually rented it, I think. I don't think I bought it. I think I rented it. And I never bought a copy. This is actually a more recent copy I got. I forgot where I got it from recently in the last couple of years. But I liked it. I thought it was good. I didn't feel the same magic as part 1. But by no means do I think it was a horrible game. Who knows if I played it again now. Maybe I'll do a review of it. Especially if somebody's interested. So if you are, tell me so I can maybe have the inertia to do it. But I don't think it was as bad as people say. But I may be wrong. I don't remember. I remember playing through it. I beat the whole game. So I must have liked it somewhat. Alright. 2 other games. We got a couple games left. 2 games. Soul Fighters and Sword of Berserk. Sword of Berserk Guts Rage. So 2 very interesting games.
I love this one.
Yeah, Sword of Berserk, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically from an old manga. Still around today, though. They have huge gaps in the times that they produce them. It's also from an anime. Recently, there was the Berserk or Guts Rage. I forgot what it was called. The Hawk Gang, whatever. The one from the anime. The one that's like Dynasty Warriors.
You mean the new one?
Yeah, the Dynasty Warriors one. I forgot what it's called.
It's
based on the same anime.
I didn't play it because I didn't get it because I heard that it sucked. But I did play this one and I loved it. I mean, even though now they kind of have said that this isn't canon and they try to push it to the side because it's been so many years since the last Sword of Berserk. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great game. I enjoyed going berserk on it too because...
Well, I'll say this. This is one of those games, and let's just keep in mind as I'm putting these games up, if you read the developers, Eidos Montreal, I think. Same thing as Soul Reaver, one of the best games I've ever played.
And Tomb Raider.
And all of a sudden, they're going to do multiplayer only. Right?
Yes, they recently just announced that they're just going to do multiplayer.
It's a shame, man.
Only games, and it's a shame because, you know, this is where it's at.
Yeah.
That everything else that deals with multiplayer and loot boxes, they're just greed. It's plain and simple.
But Guts Revenge, what I was trying to get at is this is a good example of a game that the gameplay was really not that good even back then. I think it was really behind where it should have been. A lot of issues.
Really?
Yeah. The gameplay was not good. I think if you go back, you'll realize. I remember thinking the gameplay sucks. But what sucked me in was the story. The story was awesome.
The story is fantastic.
The story was awesome, and they had like these madrigals, which were these little creatures that would scream and kill you, make you into monsters. It was a cool little contained story.
I will tell you this.
I liked it.
I'll say this. I got into Sword of Berserk because of this game.
Me too.
I had no idea what Sword of Berserk was until I actually played this game.
Yeah, me too. I got it and I was like, what's this? And then we looked it up and we ended up liking it quite a bit. Kind of dropped away from it a bit now, but yeah. Soul Fighter is just kind of a generic fighting game. It's not that impressive. It's one of those games I just kind of picked up. Again, back in the day, you didn't have internet or anything to tell you if a game was good or not. You just saw the cover and it kind of caught my interest. It's an okay kind of down the road, I think, B title is what you can consider a fighting game. The last two games I'm going to show that I have on my collection are two games that I spent an incredible amount of time playing as well. Now that I'm looking at this, although my collection is small, it's not that exciting, I can't think of another system when I say, hey, pretty much every game in this system that I have, that I own, I played the crap out of, except that Slave Zero. But apart from that, pretty much every game I played the crap out of it, I enjoyed it, and it's stuck with me the whole time. I can't think of another system I can say that.
I completely agree. And that's why the Dreamcast to me is kind of... It's kind of hard because the NES holds a special spot for me, and so does the Sega Genesis, because if you guys have been watching the videos, you guys know that those were my first systems. But the Sega Dreamcast is probably there competing with them, if not beats them, because every game was fantastic to me, and they were so innovative and such fun games. Virtual Tennis is one of those games that I spent a long time playing with friends.
Yeah, it's just fun. It's still around today, but again, back in the day, I mean, it was just so much fun. You could just do it all day long, and it had plenty of content, plenty of like tours where you can go around the world and do these competitions, and it was an incredible amount of fun with two people. I just had so much fun doing it. People would come over, even in fact, I used to play with adults. I used to have my uncles or even family members and friends of family that would come over, and I could give them a control, and it was a game they can pick up. Even older people that maybe don't play video games and play the game. So I thought that was always kind of cool. Alright, Zombie Revenge. Zombie Revenge is an interesting game. I don't think it was a huge AAA game necessarily, but just show the back real quick. It was kind of like a House of the Dead type ripoff because it had that whole zombies and monsters, and you're kind of like a cop who's kind of over the top, typical hero. But it had some cool ideas in the way the gameplay was. Not only could you use a gun, but it was like a different view. It wasn't just like the typical House on Haunted Hill, a House of the Dead view. And I don't know, I really enjoyed playing it. My brother did not enjoy playing. I remember fighting with him, like play, and he never liked it too much. But I really did. It was one of the things that I kind of really liked about the system, because it was just, again, this was a time where monsters and survival horror was the thing. And it wasn't necessarily about game. You know, if you think of games like Outlast, they're kind of all about... It's gone, in my opinion, survival horror has taken the turn of just being a ridiculous survival horror where like you're given a camera and survive. You don't even get a gun. You know, everything is ridiculous. Like you're in the dark or you're so paralyzed and stupid that to me it's silly. This was kind of, and this isn't survival horror by any means, but this was kind of the time, I think, early 2000s, where the scary games that were with monsters had more action, and being a part of that game didn't feel like this ridiculous thing where the impression of survival horror was just to make you limited and make it super hard for you to survive. Even though it was hard to survive, you could. And that's what a lot of these games had. This one, being more of an action game, was not necessarily that, but it was also that the creatures were creative. You can see some of a little bit of copying, kind of like the Licker from Resident Evil. You have like a bat creature there, so I don't know, kind of cool. I really liked it back in the day. So there you go. That is my Dreamcast collection. I hope you have all enjoyed hearing us take a stroll down memory lane and talk a bunch of crap.
I think I'm gonna go cry.
In fact, I really want to go back and play these games. I need a Dreamcast control because my Dreamcast thumbstick control got messed up. But I'd love to go back and play these. And again, if you guys are interested in some kind of review, let us know, and I'll definitely get together on that.
Yeah, I'm still nostalgic about all this. So there's not much more I can say about the Dreamcast. Only that it holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah, me too. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below, is there a console? Do you feel this way about the Dreamcast, first of all? Or another console that to you not only defines, not necessarily your childhood, but your gaming golden years, you know, years that you really remember meaning something a lot to you. And that games stick out to you. Or if there's any Dreamcast game that we mentioned here, or that we don't have, that you think is really interesting, maybe I should check out.
Yeah.
Alright, so I guess it is Player 1.
And this is Player 2.
Thanks for watching.
Later.